For those of you who do not know me, I am Katie. I'm with the Wooster Area Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you all for joining us today. A couple of, housekeeping things. If you would like to ask any questions in the chat box or simply unmute yourself, we can make this a pretty informal conversation. We want to make sure we can get your questions answered if you have any. So feel free to use that chat box or just speak up. If we do have about a little over 50 people that are supposed to be joining us today, so if that seems to get a bit too crazy, I will be monitoring the chat. I do want to thank our young professional sponsors, the Commercial and Savings Bank and Critchfield and Johnston. They have been supporters of our organization and our program for a long time, and we greatly appreciate that. What else am I missing? So also, I know a lot of, we haven't had many YP sessions, so in-person sessions, we're hoping that we can start those back up when it gets warmer out and we can all be outside and socially distanced. So hold on tight, we will get started with that here soon. I do want to briefly introduce Melanie, our speaker. So Melanie is a corporate training account executive and facilitator and executive coach with The Ohio State University. So in her role as corporate training account executive and registered corporate coach, she has designed and implemented leadership development, supervisory and industrial training programs for corporate and nonprofit clients. She's facilitated workshops and coached employees to success. She has an MBA from Ashland University, which is my alma mater, so I love to see that. And she has a bachelor's degree in international relations from Miami University. She is a registered corporate coach, a Learn certified program planner, and a member of the Worldwide Association of Business Coaches. I don't want to take too much of your time, Melanie, because I'm hoping we learn a lot today with what you have to offer. So I will turn it right over to you.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak this afternoon. I think a lot of us are a little zoomed out, so I'm really impressed that 55 people registered for this. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I think that today's title is Leadership as an Attitude, Not a Title. And I think that sometimes when people start to hear someone talk about leadership, they kind of tune out because they think, you know, if I'm not in a leadership position, then leadership doesn't really apply to me. But I completely disagree. I think that leadership is an attitude, not a title, and leaders aren't the only ones who can demonstrate leadership. In fact, in today's session, I'm going to show you some ways that you can lead even if you aren't officially the leader. So let's go ahead and get started. And we'll probably have some people pop in and join us as we go, and that is fine. So first, here's how we're going to spend the next hour. We're going to do some quick introductions. Like I said, since there's so many of you, we're not going to have each of you unmute, but I will have you, I'll explain how we'll do that in a second. Then we're going to talk about ways that you can lead when you aren't a leader. And it says 9 steps, which doesn't sound very easy. It's not like 9 easy steps to being a leader. It's really more 9 different strategies, 9 different ideas that you can implement. You don't have to do all of them, but even if you do 1 or 2 of them, it can make a big difference. And then we're going to spend the last bit of time creating your action plan, because as kind of a specialist in adult learning, I know that so often we forget absolutely everything 10 minutes after we log off of our Zoom session. So unless you really spend a little bit of time reflecting and writing some things down on paper, what you're going to do, what actions you're going to take, things tend to go in one ear and out the other. So I don't want that to happen today. So we'll have some time at the end to do that. So let's start with introductions. And what I'm going to have you do is just use the chat feature and just type in your name and your company. And we'll see all that scroll down the side of the screen. So everybody will kind of be able to see who's on the call. And while you're doing that, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about our organization. If anyone does not know how to find the chat feature, let us know. You can just unmute and tell us. So we've got a variety of people from all sorts of different organizations. We've got people from manufacturing and nonprofits and municipalities and all different organizations. So I think that this topic applies equally to all of those situations. Go ahead, Ben, did you have something to say? Okay, sorry. I got you unmuted for a second. So I will tell you, while those introductions are all scrolling down the screen, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about the organization that I work for so that I can establish a little bit of street cred about why I might know anything about leadership. So I work for the Business Training and Educational Services Department of The Ohio State University on the Wooster campus. So our department, we call it BTES for short, and we kind of have two main functions. One is continuing education. So that means if one of you wanted to take a class, just any class on campus, you would come through us, we'd get you registered if you're a non-traditional student. The other thing that we specialize in is workforce training. So that could be open enrollment training, like signing up for a professional development course that we're offering, like our upcoming Supervisor's Toolbox program, or customized contract training, which is what I specialize in. So that's when a company hires us to provide training that's customized to their needs and delivered at a time and place that's convenient to them and in a format that's convenient, whether it's virtual or in person or hybrid. And so then we help train and develop and coach their employees through assessments, traditional workshops, or executive coaching. And even if your company has a special need, we can develop customized curriculum that we develop for you, and then you own it so that you could do the training in-house. So a lot of different areas that we can help, whether it's soft skills or industrial technical skills. And lastly, we operate like a business, which is something a lot of people don't recognize. We do not receive funding directly from the university. So we're like a little business within the university. We're university employees, but we have to develop our own business to pay our own bills. So in that sense, we operate just like your company. So we are under the umbrella of OSU, but we are kind of on our own financially. So that makes us have to think like business people, and we can definitely relate. This is our team. Zach Berkey's our office manager. That's me in the middle. And our director is Kim Sayers, who some of you may know as the past Rotary president. And so we're a small but mighty team. Kim and Zach's background is mostly higher ed. Mine is mostly corporate. I have a background in manufacturing, international business, business development, mergers and acquisitions, and now higher ed. But my focus is primarily working with companies, not students. Quick look at some of our clients. We work with all sorts of different companies, from manufacturers like Venn and Gojo to companies with some nationwide recognition like Smuckers and Wayne Dalton, Frito-Lay. We also work with municipalities like the City of Worcester, Ashland, Lorraine, and even other colleges like the College of Worcester, Denison, and then of course our own internal OSU employees. So with all that boring background stuff out of the way, let's talk about leadership. So I think that the world is full of famous leaders, like some of them pictured on the screen here, but it's also full of some not so famous leaders, like the people we work with every day, or the people that we know from different organizations or charities that we may be involved with. So I'd like to ask each of you to go ahead and use the chat feature and just type in the name of a leader that you admire, and then one word about a quality that that leader possesses that you really admire. So leader's name, and then the quality that they have, the quality they possess that you really admire. So I'll type mine in. So mine is Malala. Oops. Mine is Malala. She was the Pakistani schoolgirl that was shot in the head by the Taliban for, the crime of going to school and trying to get an education as a female. And I think she has tremendous courage to continue to go to school and continue to speak out against that when she had death threats and had to be evacuated from her country, and she still speaks out. So to me, she represents. Steve Moore is humble, very good. Joel Salatin, wisdom. So we've got humble, courage, wisdom. If you're having trouble finding your chat feature, it might be under the More button on the far right, and then you have to choose chat. Ronald Reagan, inspirational, influential, very good. Give you another minute or two. Decisive. Lady Diana, kindness. There she was. Good one, Genevieve. So these words that you all mentioned, persevering, kindness, decisive, courage, influential, inspirational, wisdom, humble, are those qualities that you have to be in a leadership position in order to exhibit? Do you have to be a leader to have courage? I think there are people every day that have courage. Everybody going to work in a hospital during a pandemic has had courage. Those Gojo employees who've been making hand sanitizer around the clock for the last 9 months have perseverance. So I personally don't think that you have to be a leader to demonstrate these qualities that we all admire in these leaders. So if you don't have to be a leader to exhibit these qualities, what are we waiting for? Can't we do that now? I argue that we can. So to back up a little bit and tell you a little bit about my past, my first job out of college was in Chicago, working for a company called Successories. And they made corporate motivational products, a lot like this one that you see. You actually, if anybody watches The Office, all the posters and all the things hanging on the wall in Michael Scott's office, in the conference room, those are all vintage 1992 Successories products. So they are the real deal. There's one with the teamwork and the puzzle pieces and the people rowing the boat. Those are all legitimate Successories products that we made back in the early 90s in Chicago. And these products, they graced the boardrooms of places like Michael Scott's office and real companies all over the US. And they kind of inspired those CEOs and presidents to rally the troops with these mantras like success is a journey, not a destination, and all these things that seem a little bit cheesy now. But with that background, it's not a big surprise that I would come up with a title like this for our workshop today, that leadership is an attitude, not a title. This could have been an actual Successories product. It probably is by now. But in all seriousness, the Successories products sold so well because they summed up some fundamental truths about success and teamwork and leadership. And one of those fundamental truths, I believe, is that leadership is an attitude, not a title. So I'll illustrate what I mean by that. So when we look at these penguins here, what do we notice about how they look? They're all about the same height. This one's a little chubbier than the rest, but for the most part, they're all about the same height, same weight, same coloring. There isn't any one that really stands out as being the alpha penguin, one that's bigger or stronger or capable of overpowering everybody or dominating everybody, right? So how can you tell which one's the leader? Is it this guy? He's kind of looking around like, what's going on? Probably not him. Is it one of these four that are all looking straight ahead like soldiers waiting for their marching orders? Probably not. It's this guy, right? How can we tell that he's the leader? Does he have a little t-shirt that says leader? No, but he's acting like a leader. He's stepping forward. He's looking straight ahead. He's moving forward. He's setting a trail for the others to follow. The rest of them are standing still. He's moving forward. He's acting like a leader. So when others are immobilized by fear or uncertainty or not even knowing what's going on or apathy, the leader steps forward and steps up. So let that sink in for a second. The leader steps forward and steps up when everyone else is immobilized by fear, indecision, apathy, cluelessness. They all look to the leader to step forward. So sometimes when I teach these leadership workshops, I'll have people say, well, how can I be a leader when I'm not the boss? Won't I be stepping on anybody's toes? In other words, how can you lead when you aren't officially the leader? And see, I think it's kind of a chicken or egg situation, right? which comes first, the leadership skills or the leadership opportunity? And some people think that when you're promoted to a leadership position, that's how you develop the leadership skills. Like after a promotion, they pull you aside and teach you all the leadership skills you need, like it's a secret handshake or something. But that's not how it actually works. I think it actually works in reverse. I think your ability to learn and demonstrate leadership skills is how you get promoted into leadership in the first place. So the good news in that situation is that you have the ability to work on your leadership skills and develop them now so that you have a little more control over your destiny. So learning those leadership skills, applying them, and starting to use them on a daily basis allows you to help shape your future and create the leadership opportunities that you want in the future. So in this workshop, we're going to just learn a couple of ideas for how you can demonstrate some of those leadership skills. But before we do that, I want you all to close your eyes for a second. Promise me you're going to wake up when we're done. So close your eyes. I want you to picture yourself 20 years from now. You're sitting at the same desk that you sit at now, doing the same job you do now, working with the same people, completing the same tasks. Now, with your eyes still closed, raise your hand if you find that scenario fulfilling. Okay, put your hands down. Raise your hand if you find that really unfulfilling. Raise your hand if you find that downright frightening. Okay, open your eyes. This probably won't come as a big surprise, but nobody found that fulfilling. Not one of you. It was a stretch between unfulfilling and downright frightening, or both. So how do we prevent that scenario from becoming a reality? The best way to create a different outcome is to do things differently than you're doing them now. In other words, be a little daring. Stretch yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone. So this is a great quote from Gary Lieboff, who's a psychologist. Every day, ask yourself what you've done today that is daring or that is a bit of a stretch. If at the end of each day you can find just one thing, then you're moving. But if not, then you're getting more and more limited and your horizons are getting smaller and smaller. And I think that that's really great advice because it's so easy for us to get stuck in our comfort zone and feel like that's progress, feel like being comfortable is progress, but it's not. It really allows us to have more and more limited opportunities and a smaller and smaller horizon. So let's not let our horizons get smaller. Let's look at some of the characteristics that we can adopt to stretch ourselves just a little bit and be a little bit daring. All right? Any questions so far? Feel free if you have questions. We're very casual. Just unmute yourself and ask them. Or if you're more comfortable using the chat feature, you can do that. And Katie's going to help me monitor that because I can't always see the chats while I have my presenter view on. So the first thing, all of these steps that I'm going to talk about are based on a combination of a really great article in Forbes by William Arruda that I can share with you later, and some of my own research from years of coaching and facilitating. So one of them is to take calculated risks. And what's that mean? Everybody always says, take calculated risks. What are some practical examples of that? One is to tackle the hard problems and the projects that other people avoid. So that could be researching the new software that your company needs. Which ones are going to meet our needs? How do we compare them? You could offer to write the employee newsletter. You could offer to clean out the supply closet, whatever. Not to be a martyr, but to show that you understand how tackling that project is going to help the whole organization. You can also see the big picture. So this is a definite trait of a leader. If you work in one department, chances are you know how certain actions are going to impact your group or your department. But how about the work of the other departments? How about your partners, your suppliers, your customers? Before decisions are made, be the person who asks these questions. How will this impact production, marketing, accounting, HR? How will this impact our customers or our vendors or our employees? And here's the trick. You don't have to know the answer. You don't have to know the answer to be the one who asks the question. By asking the question, you're leading the discussion in a direction to help make sure that everybody's thinking of the impacts on everyone. So make sure everyone's aware of the impact on various different groups, because chances are there isn't a representative from all of those groups at your table. How often do you invite your vendors to your meetings or your customers? They're not there. But if you're the one who asks the questions, it kind of stops the train in its track and makes everyone stop and think, could this course of action have unintended consequences? Who have we forgotten about? Whose voice have we not incorporated into this decision-making process? And it gives you a chance to take corrective action if you need to, or rethink the decision altogether, or decide to get some more data. So be the one who asks, how's this going to impact? Again, you don't have to know the answer. You just have to steer the conversation in that direction. Question authority respectfully and positively. If you think figures are inaccurate or a decision is going to have unintended negative consequences, speak up, but do so politely and respectfully. And lastly, ask for what you want, but explain how giving it to you will benefit them, not you. Nobody cares about you. No, that's not true. But they really are more interested in how it's going to impact them. So make sure that is part of your sales process. So I'm going to tell you a little story about a time when I used all 4 of these suggestions with great success to kind of illustrate how this works. So years ago, I worked for a company that was planning to create a new spin-off company. And the goal of the spin-off company was to sell our products in bulk to distributors, and that they would save money by buying in bulk because the shipping costs would be lower. So unfortunately, the management team had underestimated the weight of our products. So their whole business model was on a little bit of shaky ground, in my opinion. So when they presented their plan to all the employees, I got a little concerned, because I knew that they couldn't fit as much product on a semi-truck as they thought they could, because I was the one who calculated all the weight of the outgoing shipments. So I thought it was risky to speak up, but it was probably riskier for the company to base their whole new business model on faulty data, right? So fortunately, I had the courage to question authority respectfully. Then I offered to tackle the hard problem of figuring out why or how they arrived at their weight calculations and why they were different than mine. So after a couple days of crunching numbers, I realized that they were basing their figures on a simple average of our product weight instead of a weighted average. So in other words, they were taking the average weight of all of our products, but we didn't sell all of our products equally. So our best-selling products were heavier than the average. So the typical truckload that they thought they'd be shipping, or the typical truckload that we shipped out, would have been far too heavy for their business model. So it would be more than the truck could legally carry. So I wanted to make sure I understood the big picture. So I talked to our customers, I talked to our trucking companies, I talked to our production team, and I learned that if we could reformulate our product, our best-selling products, to make them lighter weight, then the business model would work. We'd be able to fit what customers wanted on a full truck and make the business model work. So I asked if I could be in charge of the reformulating process, because I was already halfway into the project and I thought I could get it done faster. So I asked for what I wanted and explained how it would benefit them. We successfully reformulated the product very quickly, and the business model worked. So after that, guess who they asked to run the spinoff company? So my calculated risks paid off. And I think that's a good example of showing how to do all of those things and have a really positive outcome. Next, after taking calculated risks, acknowledging others. So you don't need to be a leader to acknowledge other people's hard work or their good work. It's free, it doesn't require a management title, and it makes people feel good. So why not do it? If someone did a great job on a project, give them kudos. If somebody really helped you out, make sure you express your appreciation. And a handwritten note, I think in this day of texts and emails and everything, a handwritten note is a really memorable way to do that. I keep a box of monogrammed note cards in my desk, and I use them very generously. And know that when you acknowledge other people's good work, it motivates them and it keeps them engaged in their work. And I just generally think that people don't give enough praise in this world. So if you're someone who does, you're someone that people want to work with and work for. And that helps. If people want to work for you, you've just created a leadership role for yourself. The third way that you can use some leadership skills or develop some leadership skills is to take the initiative. Everybody always says they're looking for a self-starter, someone who can take the initiative, but what does that actually mean? What are some practical ideas? One thing you can do is help to establish procedures. Offer to create a how-to manual for a process or a procedure or an event that you have every year. Update it with improvements, new ideas, feedback, suggestions from others. Keep it up to date. That becomes a training manual for somebody who's new on the job. If you pass the organization of this event down to somebody new each year, you're giving them kind of a playbook. So taking the time to document all of that and create those best practices goes a long way. Next, you can offer to become the expert, whether that's an expert in what your competition's doing. You could offer to follow a bunch of industry blogs and write an executive summary for your boss, so she's kind of in the loop, or an executive summary on what your competitors are doing. You could master the new software and offer to train other people. You can set up and maintain your company's social media accounts or one of them. So you can become the expert in something. Next, you can survey, analyze, suggest improvements. With all the free online survey tools you can use, like SurveyMonkey and things like that, it's so easy to find out what your customers, your vendors, your employees, your donors, what they think, what they need, what they like. And don't just stop there. Don't just send out the survey. Analyze the data and look for innovative product suggestions or new procedures or events that might engage those people more. So take it that next step and come up with some of your own ideas to suggest. I have to say that I think these survey tools become pretty addicting. Once I had my SurveyMonkey account, I just started surveying everybody for everything, including my kids for like their favorite dinner ideas. They're like, Mom is geeking out on the SurveyMonkey, so I needed to stop on that. Next one, is to project optimism. So leaders stay focused on the mission. They can't let themselves succumb to the negative. So if you want to be considered a leader, then act like one. You can focus on the mission. Don't get distracted by the gossip or pointing fingers. Avoid that office Debbie Downer or Dave Downer. We always know there's a couple of employees in every company that are just a negative they're just a ball of negativity. You can't fix them, but you don't need to let them drag you down. Smile, it goes a long way. And do something that I call voice the positive. And we're going to practice this in a second. Voicing the positive means kind of being that person who points out the silver lining or looks on the bright side. Not to be the annoying Pollyanna type, but to help balance out the negativity. So we're going to do a little activity here where I'm going to give you a situation or an example of something kind of negative. And I want you to come up with the silver lining or the positive side of things that you could say. You smile and make the counterbalance comment to the negative comment. So most of us, some of us are natural optimists, but the rest of us need some practice. So if I were to say, oh, Katie, our event was a flop. Absolutely nobody showed up. Say Katie's next YP event. Nobody shows up, which I doubt. But if that were to happen, what's an example of smiling and looking on the bright side? You can feel free to either chat or unmute and talk. Don't all rush to unmute. Otherwise, I'm going to start calling on you based on who I know. And nobody wants me to do that.
Melanie, this is Beth. You could maybe say something like, well, you know what? I bet it was because of that bad weather that we had. That was an ice storm, and that probably kept people at home. We've had great success for our past ones, and we have a ton of people signed up for our next one. So we can get past it.
Right. Outstanding. Good one, Beth. Thank you. What if, or you could say, hey, nowhere to go but up. We'll learn from our mistakes. We'll do better next time. We'll survey everybody, find out, what the issue was, and we'll fix it. So all of those are good ideas. All right, next one. We have to work overtime again this weekend. How do you voice the positive there? Got to be something good about that. Oops, what's in my chat? I'm grateful to have a job. Great. Yeah, I'm grateful to have a job when many don't. Excellent point. Nicole says, let's all pitch in and order lunch or dinner. That'll make it a little more fun. Lindsay, at least we'll get a little extra on our next paycheck or have more time the following week. Great, you guys get it. Last one, customers don't like our new ideas for the ad campaign. Where's the positive there? What could we say that is positive?
We know what doesn't work now.
Exactly, good. We know what doesn't work. We're lucky to get some honest feedback in time to make changes before we launch it, right? So all of that is looking on the bright side. Great, you guys got it. So your assignment for the rest of this week, especially for those of you who were like, I have nothing to say here. I have no idea what would be positive here. If that did not come naturally to you, I want you to spend some time really focusing on that the rest of this week and practice smiling and voicing the positive. I think especially as this pandemic drags on, it's tougher for people to find the positive in much of anything. But in general, I think it's almost like a public service. When you can find it in your heart to find something positive to say, it does boost everybody else up. And I think that's important right now. Great. All right, moving on. Number 5, think outside the hierarchy. So being a leader means thinking outside of your cubicle, beyond your role, beyond your function, beyond your department. So there's some things that you can do intentionally by developing relationships with people outside your department or outside your company, maybe a peer who does the same role at another company, and just kind of idea sharing. How do they do things? What could you learn from them? Ask them to lunch back, when we can do that sort of thing again. Or ask if you can come do like an informational interview, internal within your company. What do you guys do in marketing? I've always been curious. We may find for some of you, your companies may be extra busy right now. For some of you, people may have a little more time than they have in the past. Maybe they're not traveling so much and they might have a few minutes to have a Zoom call with you and talk about challenges in their department, new things that are happening. And that's a good way for you to learn. It's also if you volunteer to be part of a cross-functional team. So maybe that's a Lean Six Sigma initiative, a Kaizen event, or maybe it's taking a look at, I don't know, what's your maybe a diversity and inclusion team for your company to do some training or to just find out how you could improve in that area. Or maybe it's recruiting a more diverse workforce or any sort of thing like that. Anytime you get to be part of a cross-functional team, you meet people from different departments that have different roles, gives you a chance to find out what kind of opportunities for advancement might exist in those departments. If nothing else, it helps you expand your ability to see the big picture and understand how those decisions will impact those other departments, like we talked about in an earlier slide. Another thing you could do is become part of a company-wide initiative. Like most companies have either a healthy workplace. So maybe you've organized a lunchtime walking group, or maybe you offered to lead a book study or a book discussion on a popular business book, or maybe you start a canned food drive, or you organize a day of volunteering, or maybe you become the chairperson for your United Way campaign. All of those things give you an opportunity to show your leadership skills in a way that's apart from your regular job. Speaking of that, demonstrating your leadership outside of the job or the classroom, there is a lot of need for leadership outside of the normal workday. Think of all the boards and charities and committees and sports groups and school groups that need someone to step in and take charge. So why not spread your leadership wings in the relatively low risk environment of a volunteer position? right? They can't fire you, so it seems like a good place to start. You can take on leadership roles in professional organizations that are related to your job or your industry. So for example, if you are in human resources, you could serve as an officer in the local Human Resource Association. Or you could take charge of a specific event for your company, like maybe you're having an employee appreciation day and they need someone to lead some team building activities, or a strategic planning event, or a brainstorming session. Those are all things that most people have to teach themselves how to do, so you could do that. Another way is to find your passion and volunteer for it. So there are literally hundreds of community groups, charities, causes, events that all require leaders to get things done. So we're going to do a little activity here. This is where your handout that we sent you, we actually sent you two of them, but you have one that looks like this little Venn diagram. And I wanted to have us just take a minute and work on this. So to help you figure out where to best spread your leadership wings, you need to find some kind of organization or project or cause that you really care about and you can help. Because if you aren't interested in the cause, you're not going to be a very motivated, engaged volunteer. And then it won't be the leadership development experience that you want it to be. So I've created this Venn diagram here. So to help you figure out where your professional skills intersect with your passion and your interests, because that's most likely to be your ideal volunteer opportunity, where you're going to be passionate about it and give it your all. So for example, if your professional skills are that you have really good computer skills and you're really organized, and maybe your passion is running, the ideal volunteer opportunity might be handling registration or logistics for Relay for Life or a 5K or Heart and Soul race, any of those kinds of things. So that's an example. I want to just give you a couple of minutes to use that Venn diagram or the Wayne Hart Walk. Yes, thank you, Jen. Get that plug in. If you don't have your handout, you can just draw your own Venn diagram. It's not copyrighted or patented or anything, so just make those two circles. So I'll give you about 5 minutes to list your professional skills, and then think about your passions and interests and see if there's an overlap there. And then I may ask one or two of you to share if you came up with something. Let me just set my timer here for a couple minutes and we'll let you work on that. Okay. Did anyone come up with the ideal volunteer opportunity? Feel free to either unmute or type it in the chat. I think it's something that we don't often think about. We're not always proactive about our volunteer opportunities. We're usually reacting to somebody asking us to be part of a board or a committee. And then it feels like an obligation, and we maybe aren't putting our best leadership foot forward because it feels like a chore. So I would challenge you to be a little bit more proactive about your involvement and really think about the things that you can be passionate about, because you are showing it's really an opportunity to show your leadership skills to someone who may become your future employer or your future business partner. So you owe it to yourself to be involved in something you really care about and that you can really offer something to, or else you're not necessarily putting your best foot forward out into the community. And you never know where your next job is coming from. It's often from something outside of your company, from something, a board you were on or a charity that you were involved in. So all of those are opportunities to show what you can do. All right, let's move on. One thing I wanted to point out is in whatever city you're in, there's a lot of ways to get involved, but one that I've discovered that's really easy and works nationwide is if you need to figure out what organizations might need your help or your specific skill set, you can go online and type in United Way Get Connected, and then your city, whether it's Charlotte, North Carolina or Wooster, Ohio, and it will direct you to the local United Way chapter. And I just tested it this morning to make sure it still worked. If you type in United Way Get Connected Wooster, it'll take you to the Wayne Holmes County site, and then you just click on Get Involved and Volunteer. And you can set up a volunteer profile that says, these are the kind of things I can help with. Here's my time commitment. And it just, like Match.com, it just starts matching you with opportunities, whether it's an ongoing thing or a one-day activity. So that's one way to find opportunities that fit your skills and your unique skills and your passions. That's just one of many ways, but that's an easy one. Oops. All right, back to the leadership stuff. The next thing that you can do is ask for feedback. So leaders ask for feedback on their job performance. They want to know where they're doing well and where they could use some improvement. So you can ask for this feedback either informally or formally. Informally is just saying to your boss, hey, was the report I prepared for you okay? Was it missing anything? Did it have all the information you needed? That's kind of an informal feedback. Or is there, anything that, are my computer skills where they need to be? Is there a software program I should be learning? Are there, interpersonal skills that I could be working on? The other way you can get feedback is through something more formal, like a 360-degree review. And those nowadays are mostly online, and it's really just a way for your manager, your direct reports, your peers, and others to kind of create that 360-degree review of you as a leader. And it's generally anonymous, so people usually speak pretty freely because they know that it's anonymous, and it helps kind of highlight your strengths so that you can find more opportunities to capitalize on those strengths. And it also highlights some areas where you could use a little work so that it provides some direction to your professional development plans. If you know where you need to improve because you're hearing it from other people, then you know you're on the right path. Oftentimes we're our own worst critic, but sometimes we're also really blind to some of our faults. And we're also blind to our strengths. So it's important to know both of those. So if you want to learn any more about 360-degree reviews, feel free to contact me afterwards. I can give you some more information on that. And another idea for leadership development is to always be adding new tools to your toolbox. Leaders never stop learning new things, whether it's mastering new software or attending a conflict resolution workshop. Adding new tools to your toolbox shows other people that you want to grow and advance. So take advantage of training programs like this. This was free, easy, didn't even have to leave your office. Or programs that we might have going on at Ohio State Wooster. We do have a supervisory training program coming up that starts March 11th. So that is going to be virtual. So just like this. Read On Becoming a Leader by Warren Bennis. Listen to leadership podcasts. Personally, I like Leadership 480 by DDI and The Leadership Lab by Franklin Covey. And I can send all this information to you later, so you don't have to worry about jotting it all down right now. If anyone has a leadership podcast or a business podcast that they really like, feel free to type that into the chat box to share it with everybody. We have a lot of people on this call, so we might as well learn from each other, right? And then lastly, you don't have to have a fancy title to make an impact on the professional life of others. A couple of ways that you could do that is volunteer to mentor new employees at your organization. Most companies don't have the time and the bandwidth to create a really robust new hire training program. Or if they do, it's focused on the technical skills that that employee needs. They don't often maybe hook that person up with more of a social mentor, that person who eats lunch with them the first couple of days, or makes sure they know where the bathroom is, or kind of helps them navigate the political ins and outs of the company. So offering to, kind of help mentor some of those new employees is really beneficial, not just for you, but it also, studies show that most employees decide whether or not they're going to stay on the job within the first 30 days. So if your company isn't actively doing something to make those first 30 days awesome, you're going to have you risk having a retention problem. So offering that and backing it up with some data, you're helping the company to retain good employees, but you're also creating some practice for you in coaching, mentoring, those soft skills that are so important. You may also find out some problems that your company has that you didn't notice because you've got an employee with fresh eyes looking at things and asking questions that you might not think of anymore. So they may point out some problems or have some questions that allow you to offer some suggestions to the management team on how to improve a new employee experience. You can also offer to teach and train. So maybe you take it upon yourself to really become the expert in a certain software or in a certain new procedure. And then you offer to train, to train other people on it, or offer to do a little lunch and learn session on something, a topic of interest. And learning new things so that you can fill the needs of your company. Maybe you're stuck in a new product rut. Nobody can come up with new product ideas. Maybe you take it upon yourself to learn some brainstorming activities and lead a brainstorming session to help get those creative juices flowing, or offer to do a team building event for some new sales reps or something. The other thing you can do is coach up, helping people above you learn a new skill if it's something you have a lot of expertise in. Say you're a whiz with Excel or OneNote or Twitter or whatever. You can offer to help teach somebody who doesn't have that skill, particularly if it's somebody higher up in the organization. That gives you a chance to have some one-on-one time with them and to show them what you can do. All right, so now is the part we talked about where we put where the rubber meets the road, and we actually do some goal setting and action planning to make all of this stick. So the other handout that we gave you was a goal planning sheet, and it is a type-in format. So if you want to type in, you can, or if you printed it out, you handwrite it. That's all fine. So studies show that training doesn't do any good if you don't spend some time reflecting and really putting it into practice. So we're trying to do some learning transfer, taking what you've learned and transferring it into your daily life and your daily habits. So I want you to take this goal setting and action planning sheet, and I'm going to give you about the last 5 minutes to write down a couple of specific actions that you want to commit to taking over the next week or so to take on some of these characteristics of a leader. So I know that we covered a lot of information, so I'm going to put all 9 of those steps back up on the screen just to help you remember. And go ahead and just take a couple of minutes to think, what steps do I want to take? By when? What resources will I need in order to do that? And really commit to a date. And then when you leave here today, transfer that date into your calendar and hold yourself to it. And if you want to send them to me so that I follow up with you and hold you accountable, I'm happy to do that. But let me give you about 5 minutes to do that. If you don't have the form, you can just write goals on any piece of paper. That's fine. And if you have any questions, feel free to chat or unmute and just ask. All right, everybody. time is up. I hope that you were able to set some actions that you can commit to, because only just taking 2 or 3 steps is a huge accomplishment. And this is something that you can revisit and make part of your professional development plan. Most of us have annual reviews, and we're often asked what we want to do, how we're going to develop our leadership skills. So this helps you already complete that part of your review. So that's an extra bonus. If anyone has any questions, I am happy to stick around for a few minutes afterwards. I will also share my email address here, garcia.301@osu.edu. I would be happy to talk to anybody about any questions you have. I can also send Katie some of the things that I mentioned, that the On Becoming a Leader book by Bennis, some of those podcasts that I mentioned, the article that I used to help create this presentation. And if there's anything else that you'd like me to send to you, I'm happy to send that through Katie, and she can get all of that out to you. So feel free to, if you have any questions, I'll stick around for a little bit. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time and attention today. You've already taken a big step towards becoming leaders. And remember, it's an attitude, not a title.
I do want to say thank you, Melanie, for taking the time to speak with us all today. I know I learned a lot. So I'm very appreciative for you taking this time out of your day to speak with all of us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. The session was it was recorded, so we'll be posting that on our YouTube page as well as our Young Professionals page. So if you want to refer it to somebody or take a look back at maybe what Melanie had shared, that will be available, I'm hoping this afternoon, maybe early tomorrow morning. And a couple of plugs, we will not be having a session next month virtually, but we are hoping that you all will join us in you'll see it in our newsletter, our hashtag Making an Impact. So we're wanting to have our young professionals show ways that they are supporting local. So whether that be ordering takeout from a restaurant or dining in, or making a purchase from a retail establishment, if you can use the hashtag Making an Impact, share photos and tag the Wooster Young Professionals on our Facebook page. We would greatly appreciate that. Just love to see what you all are doing in our local community, just to support during these troubling times. So that will be our next YP session, I suppose, for the month of March. Again, thank you so much to our sponsors, Critchfield & Johnston, and the Commercial and Savings Bank. And if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to shoot me an email or just give me a call.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Have a good day, everyone.